Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very much for doing this. My concern is that in 2013, you had 40 dissidents arrested in the first 6 weeks, a show trial, and long sentences. And this was more cases than all of last year in Vietnam. And sometimes when we're talking about these cases, I think our mistake is to not look at the details of the magnitude of human rights violations that occur and over such a trivial issue. Maybe not that trivial, because the two students that I wanted to bring up, Nguyen Phuong Nguyen and Dinh Nguyen Ca, were actually talking about the territorial integrity of their own country, of Vietnam, handing out leaflets. And for that, this 21-year-old girl, and this is a photo of her, and I think there was a photo earlier, now is sentenced to 6 years in prison. And here's my concern and why I'm bringing this to the attention of both of you. After she was arrested and before our sentencing, we had that dialogue. And nowhere in your remarks do I see mention of what happened to her, and according to her mother and according to her friend, when she was arrested, she was beaten into unconsciousness and kicked. Her mother reports the bruises on her neck, on her arms that her mother could see. She was carried away, charged, I guess the terminology is working against the interests of the state, or words to that effect, and receives a 6-year sentence. And her friend, in his 20s, another college student, he's sentenced to 8 years. It is not just the show trials and the sentencing, it's the barbarous way in which they were beaten. And my concern is when we have these dialogues, when we had that dialogue in April before her sentencing, how much, Doctor, did you speak up about this case? And what did you say the United States was prepared to do to prevent these disparate sentencings and these types of beatings while in custody?
Thank you, Congressman. I'm glad you focused on the case of Nguyen Phuong Nguyen. When she was first arrested, I actually went to New York and met with the ambassador of Vietnam to the United Nations there and raised my concerns about that case and her case.
What did he say? I'd love to hear his
He noted my concerns and said that he would take them back to Hanoi. And I raised them again in the course of the human rights dialogue. The fact that she wasn't mentioned in my opening testimony is only testament to the number of names that I could have listed in my opening testimony.
I understand, Dr. Baer, but at some point, our actions have to match our words. We are at that point with Vietnam, seriously. You can't have 40 cases like this in 6 weeks and not have the United States take decisive action. And the reason we're holding this hearing today is because we're demanding some semblance of responsibility with respect to human rights inside Vietnam. We have a relationship with this country, and there is much that Vietnam is asking of the United States. I don't think it's too much to ask for her release and for the release of this other student who was taken into custody. Again, the crime here is passing out a leaflet that discusses the issue of the territorial questions, the territorial waters off the coast of Vietnam. How in the world can that constitute or justify the type of beating she went through and the type of prison sentence that she and her friend have been given? And if we are not going to use the leverage that we have in order to check these impulses to use violence, it's not responsible for the United States, with the leverage we have, not to make our actions match our words about this. And we're going to have to do something. And my suggestion is contact again the ambassador and tell him about the concerns, not just from us, but from the NGO community worldwide. This is the type of thing that starts a firestorm among young people over their future on this planet when governments are as capricious as this. And there are other issues that you and I have talked about that I could bring up. But at this point in time, please let's at least set an example here that the dialogue we're having can bear some results, that we mean it when we say we want to work together for human rights and for the future. And this would be such an important place for the government in Vietnam to start with respect to these two students. And if I could just have a quick response.
You have my commitment that I will continue to raise this case and that I will press them to release her and her friend on the charges that they've been sentenced on.
Dr. Behr, thank you, and I appreciate
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.